All right, good evening, everybody. It is 7:02, so I'll go ahead and cut it short because I'm not sure how long we're going to go tonight, so we'll go ahead and get going just to make sure that we're not extending things further than we want to. My name is Gabriel. Welcome to All People's Church. This is Elba, Engaged Learning of the Bible with Application. We are in the book of Judges. And before we start tonight, I wanted to go back to something we talked about last week. A couple people approached me about this and wanted to kind of give a little bit more of an example. We talked about last week proper arrangements of the altar. So we have in the story in Judges, there was an altar, one altar that was torn down, another altar that was built to Yahweh, and God told Gideon to make that altar in the proper arrangement. And so I made a point about this, and we talked about what does that look like for today. So let me give you a couple of examples of what it might look like for today. In one of my classes last night at Liberty, we came across a story told by Watchman Nee. And it's not a story. It was a point that he made, and he said basically that there are missionaries. He talked about missionaries specifically who will go across the planet to do work for the Lord. And he talked about it in terms of consecration. They think they are consecrating themselves to God for his work, but they're actually consecrating their uncrucified natural bodies. In other words, here I am, Lord. The sacrifice is proper. Here I am, I want to do your work. But they're not actually doing it on his terms. And there's a lot of missionaries that are like that they just go off and do whatever just because it seems like a good idea. Watchman Nee was bringing that out, and I thought, you know what? This is that kind of thing where it's a good idea, it's a sacrifice that's worthy, but it might be on an improperly arranged altar. I'll give you another example. I shared this with somebody on Sunday. John Bevere, and I think we were all here, well, we might not have all been here, but I think everybody heard this in the context of it was in the Undercover series, which we went through a few years back. So many of you may not have seen or heard it. But undercover is the idea of being submitted to authority. And there's safety in that submission to authority. And John Bevere's book, Undercover, and then his teaching series on it. And in that series, he told a story about when he was a youth pastor, I believe it was in Orlando. And he had seen some sort of youth program evangelism thing at work in some other person's church, and he said, wow, that's great. And he wanted to adopt it. He came to his pastor and he said, can we adopt this? And the pastor said, yeah, go for it. And he spent 6 months working on developing this new program that they were going to go out and reach Orlando, the youth of Orlando. So he spent 6 months on it. He was doing it to the glory of God. He had his pastor's backing on it. And then right before it was time to launch, the pastor said, we're not doing this. And John Bevere was upset, obviously, and had the moment of, processing. And he went home and he talked with his wife, and his wife assisted him in processing. But at the end of that, he made this statement, I thought, wow, that's very interesting. He said, I could have gotten every young person under the age of 18 in Orlando saved. And if I had done that outside of the authority of the pastor, against the pastor's wishes, and gone outside of his authority to do that, not one of those salvations of the entire city of Orlando would be credited to my account on Judgment Day. So, and he made the right choice of being submitted. But the point is, we can do God's work, quote unquote, and we can do it even with a right heart, I would say. Good sacrifices, right sacrifices on improperly arranged altars. And I think those are some ways that maybe we can have improperly arranged altars in our life. So I just wanted to go back and touch on that. Let's keep going for today. Questions for investigation. We have Judges chapters 9 through 12. And tried to make them a little bit easier this week. I think last week I kind of made them way too hard. But anyway, let's see. They're hidden responses. Okay, here we go. How did Abimelech die? If you read it, then you'll know how Abimelech died. Was he hit by a woman? A woman hit him on the head with a bronze idol. He was run through by his armor bearer. He died at the hands of Gaal in the Battle of Shechem, or he accidentally ate a pineapple pizza. Boy, that could do it. If you haven't joined us yet, you can go to minty.com and plug in code 22572737. And I think we're probably about at maxed out voting capacity here, so we'll go ahead and see what we got. Most people say he was run through by his armor bearer. Nobody likes the pineapple. No fun and games tonight. Nobody likes the pineapple pizza Mickey Mouse answer. Okay. This is a tricky question. True or false? Abimelech was the worst judge. Trick question. Okay, we got 16 votes. Let's see what we got. Most people say false. Last question for tonight. Jephthah did all of the following except. So the story of Jephthah in Judges chapter 11 and into the beginning of chapter 12. Which of these things did he not do? So he did all of them except defeat the Midianites at Gilead, make an unwise vow to the Lord, killed 42,000 Ephraimites, and recount accurate history to his royal opponent. Man, what is that little, that's weird. Oh, this is the wind. It probably is, yeah. Okay, so we got a little bit of a mixed bag here. Half of us say that it's to recount accurate history to his royal opponent. A little bit over half think that that's what he did not do. He did all of the following except. Okay, so we'll see in just a few moments here. Let's get into, I believe there are 4 kind of subtopics to this, each more or less comprising 1 chapter each. So chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. It starts with the vignette of Abimelech. And actually, pause for just a moment, please. I suddenly realized that I do not have the notes that I need. But I will. I spent way too much time on the crossword for tonight. I got into it, and I was like, I gotta get this thing done. And I was shocked that I actually did. I didn't think I was gonna make it. But anyway, so I didn't print off my notes. But here we go. The vignette of Abimelech. So we have this character Abimelech, and we have this story, this little vignette. I'm calling it a vignette because it's shoved in the middle here of these accounts of the judges. The book of Judges is about the judges, right? But this story of Abimelech is here right in between these other accounts of the judges. First of all, Abimelech is not a judge. He's not considered one of the judges. So it's false that he was the worst judge because he wasn't a judge at all. Okay? Why would I say that he's not a judge? He's listed in the book of Judges, okay? First of all, it doesn't say he's a judge. Secondly, he's a bad guy. All right? And the judges were all good guys, if I can say it that way. Not perfect by any stretch, but good guys, if we can say it that way. And then the last part is that the people made him king, the Bible says. Not king over all Israel, but he was king over some smaller territory there within Israel. So he does not count as one of the judges, and yet he gets an entire chapter devoted to him. And so it really is sort of an aside here in the overarching story of the judges, this vignette of Abimelech. So let's talk about this story real quick, go through some of the main points. At the end of last week, we said that Abimelech was the son of Gideon by his concubine Shechem. And so we said that we would come back to this week. At the end of chapter 8, I suppose it is, it mentions that Abimelech is born here, son of Gideon. And then the whole next chapter is about his story. Abimelech engages in a bit of a power grab. He goes to his uncles on his mother's side and says, do y'all want me to rule over you, or do you want my 70 half-brothers to rule over you? And don't forget, I'm the one that's blood relation. And so they say, yeah, it's better if you rule over us, as opposed to your 70 half-brothers. So he goes out and kills his 70 half-brothers. Isn't that nice? Except one escapes. His name is Jotham. And Jotham goes to the top of Mount Gerizim and prophesies. And if you read it, you read it. It's this long, kind of drawn-out thing, but the nuts and bolts of it is, if you people who have made Abimelech king, if you've done right in this, if you've done right by Gideon, if you've done right by the Lord, then let there be joy among you, and let there be joy with Abimelech. But if not, let fire come from Abimelech and destroy you, and let fire come from you and destroy Abimelech. And then off rides Jotham into the sunset. Okay. 3 years later, there's a little point to be made there. Not everything happens the next day. 3 years later, God sent a spirit to trouble the relationship between Abimelech and the elders. So there's a conflict now between him and these people. And a new character emerges, Gaal, and he sort of stirs up the people against Abimelech, and they rely on him to lead them against Abimelech. And so there's this battle between Abimelech and his forces and Gaal and his forces. Abimelech wins the battle of Shechem, and he keeps moving forward to other battles. When he comes to Thebez, he meets his defeat. There's a tower in the city, and the people gather in the tower, and a woman threw down not a bronze idol, but a millstone, but it didn't kill him. It hit him on the head, crushed his head. He's dying, and so he says to his armor bearer, run me through with your sword, because I don't want it to be said that I was killed by a woman. That's some of the bits and pieces of these old stories are kind of funny to the modern ear. So the armor bearer kills Abimelech with the sword. Okay. So God avenges the 69 sons of Gideon, and the prophecy of Jotham comes to pass. Again, it's a vignette, it's an aside, it's in between the main point of the book, which is about the judges. And so I think the thing to take away from this is is there a moral to the story? Well, yeah, there is a moral to the story. Don't do wrong. You know? Particularly don't murder people. And don't be a party to murdering people, right? Don't be Abimelech, and don't be the elders that made him king. God is right and just, and he has justice in his time. So it's just one more story that kind of reaffirms those truths of the Bible. Okay, into chapter 10, we get two more small in that the Bible doesn't say much about them, judges. They are Tola and Yair. Tola and Jair, if you're from the mountains of Virginia. Okay. It doesn't say much. The Bible says Tola dwelt in the mountains of Ephraim and judged for 23 years. It says that Yair was a Gileadite. In other words, he was from east of the Jordan. He judged 22 years. He had 30 sons who had 30 towns and rode on 30 donkeys. That's all the Bible says about those guys, all right? Then what happened? The people did evil in the sight of the Lord again. This time, yeah, right. Are we seeing a pattern and a trend? Yes, we are. And so this time God turned them over to the Philistines. The Philistines are there on the west side of the Jordan, right? So different people groups at different times over these 400 plus year period are attacking and oppressing. In this case, it's the Philistines who oppressed them for 18 years. Meanwhile, I guess toward the end of that period, the Ammonites come along and they're going to get in on the game. And so the Ammonites encamp at Gilead. The armed forces of Israel encamp at Mizpah, right across from them. And so they're set to have a battle, and the Israelites say to each other, who's going to lead us in this battle? Enter the next judge, Jephthah. Meanwhile, as the Ammonites are gathered and Israel is saying, hey, who's going to lead us? Meanwhile, we have this backstory that begins in chapter 11 about this fellow Jephthah. I looked up some of these correct pronunciations, okay? Correct pronunciation of Jephthah is Yiftach. Okay? He was also a Gileadite. His mother was a harlot. It's similar to the story of Abimelech. It's almost like an antithesis to the story of Abimelech. Jephthah has all these half-brothers, but as opposed to Abimelech killing the half-brothers and Abimelech's the bad guy, Jephthah is the good guy, and the half-brothers kick him out and drive him out and say, you won't share in our inheritance. And so he's kind of out on the outs until we get back to this situation where the Ammonites are right there encamped across from the Israelites. And now all of a sudden, hey, we're going to go to Jephthah and ask him to come be our leader. And so they say, hey, will you lead us in battle? And he says, if I do this, you got to make me in charge. And they say, yes. And so he agrees. And so before he goes into battle, he sends a messenger to the king of Ammon, the Ammonites. And he says, why are you here? And the king sends back a message, and he says, when Israel came out of Egypt, they stole our land. So we want you to give it back peacefully. And Jephthah sends a message back and says, oh, no, you didn't. And he recounts the accurate history of when they came out of Egypt up until that point in time. And he says, this is what really happened. And so he says, first, we asked permission of Edom and Moab to pass through, and we didn't get it. So we stayed where we were. We got manners here, guy, is what he's saying. Then later, we went around Edom and Moab. We never once crossed the Arnon River into Moab. We asked permission to go through the Amorites' land, but they attacked us instead, so we dealt with them out of self-defense. So get your story straight. God took this land from you and gave it to us. Why should we give it back? Does it sound like anything happening in the news today? Here's a little short practical application. Do you know your history well enough to set the liars and the accusers and the attackers straight? I'm not talking about American history, world history. I'm talking about the history, that too, but the history of the Bible. The history. Do you know your Bible well enough? Do you know the promises of God? Do you know, can you recount accurate history to the enemy when he attacks you to say, no, it's not this way, it's that way? Jephthah knew the accurate history to recount. Not that it did any good, because the Ammonites just, it's not like they said, okay, well, we'll go away. So they go into battle, and Jephthah wins. But before he does, Jephthah makes a terrible blunder by making a vow to the Lord. And he says, if you give me victory here over the Ammonites, I'll sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my house to greet me. Now, why in the world would he say that? Well, first of all, you got to understand, it's not like the same thing if we would have said that in terms of the house, okay? Because you're thinking, okay, the first thing that comes out of my house is either going to be one of my relatives, whoever lives in my house, or maybe a pet. So why would you, right? It's not that. Jephthah is certainly thinking in terms of it was so normal, it was beyond normative, that whatever would come out would be an animal that was of the sacrificing type. It never dawned on him that anyone or anything could come out different than that. And it's not like they're coming out of his house like we think of a house, right? And so anyway, he is not thinking that there's anything wrong with this vow, because he's just thinking, all right, if there's a cow that comes out, I'll sacrifice the cow. If it's a goat, I'll sacrifice the goat, whatever. No clue that there could be any danger in making that vow. Well, the Lord gave him the victory. He's all excited about that. He comes home, and of course, who's the first one to come out? It's his daughter. And so he's devastated, obviously, but because he's made a vow, he has to follow through on sacrificing his daughter. We'll say a little bit more about that in the second look segment. In the aftermath of Jephthah's story, or the last part, which is in chapter 12, the Ephraimites get upset that Jephthah went to battle without them, and they threaten him. Jephthah gets the upper hand on them, and particularly at the Jordan River, where it's shallow, the crossing is shallow in the Jordan River. The Gileadite forces essentially have a checkpoint there, and anyone from Ephraim that tries to get across, they make them say the word what? Shibboleth. And they can't say it, so they say Sibboleth, and so they're outing themselves. I'm an Ephraimite because I don't know how to say this word Shibboleth. Nowadays, we have this Shibboleth thing in modern technology, right? A Shibboleth is a way to get past, like with a password or something, a way to get past a barrier in modern technology. And it comes from this story here in Judges. In total, 42,000 Ephraimites were killed in this first part of Judges 12. All right, at the end of Judges 12, we get 3 more judges that the Bible doesn't say much about. I looked up their names. Get ready for the pronunciation. It's not Ibzan. It's, note the long pause, Ivsan, with this huge pause, this guy. It was like 2 separate words. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but Ivsan, and it was huge pause in between. Anyway, like I said, Ibzan. From Bethlehem, 30 sons, 30 daughters, and judged for 7 years. We know the name Elon from the muck variety, but he was first a judge from the tribe of Zebulun, and he judged 10 years. His name is technically not Elon, it is Elon. That is what you are before you get married. You are alone. It's also what you can get at the bank. Alone. But yeah, it's technically not Elon, but we'll probably continue to call him Elon. The last guy is Abdon. Technically, his name is pronounced with a V, Avdon. He is from Ephraim. He has 40 sons, 30 grandsons, who rode 70 donkeys, and he judged Israel for 8 years. Aren't you edified at learning the 3 judges of Judges chapter 12? First verse of Judges chapter 13, which is where we'll pick up next time. What does it say? You guessed it. Again, Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. Really, really, really sad. So, those are our little takeaways, our little subtopics for this week. It is now time for an exercise. And this exercise is one like we've not had before. I actually went full crack tilt on this one. It's the, yeah, everybody gets one. Yeah, sure. Here, you pass them out and I'll go print some more. How's that? Now, I don't think, you probably won't finish this whole thing in the normal time. So feel free to take it home and finish it throughout the week. Or not, whatever. If you hate these things, then just throw it in the trash, whatever. But I do need to give you a couple of, I kind of rushed to get this finished, and I do need to give you a couple of, I need to fix a couple of the clues and make them better, and I'll do that in just a second after I finish printing. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, I'm going to print. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, yeah. All right. Let me give you let me fix two clues for you, okay? I kind of rushed this and wish they'd been a little bit different. Six down. Technically, instead of being CCCP to Boris, it would be better if it said CCCP to Bubba. To Bubba. Bubba's an American. What's CCCP to an American? And then 27 down should say Rosa Parks or Charles Barkley instead of Rosa Parks and Charles Barkley. Thanks. My suggestion is to start with the judges and anything else that seems simple, and then go back to tough. All right, in the second look segment, I want to go back to the story of Jephthah's daughter, that he made the unwise vow and he ended up sacrificing his daughter. And the daughter, the virgin daughter, says, obviously she's sad, but she says, I want to take some time with my friends and go up and wail over the fact that I will be dying before I am able to give birth. And it shows once again the gravity of the necessity in those days of that station of the woman to give birth. And I want to show that now a connection here. I showed this connection the last time I taught on Romans 7, which was years ago. And I want to show it again here. And so I'm going to read to you in Romans chapter 7 from my paraphrase. And we're talking about the overarching point that I'm trying to make here is for us to have a desire to bear fruit. Here's what Paul says in Romans chapter 7, again in a paraphrase. Let me illustrate, this is Paul talking, let me illustrate what happens to us when we are freed from the law. Imagine that you and the law are a married couple. You are the wife and the law is the husband. Now, your husband, the law, really makes your life miserable. You just can't get any peace or happiness while you're living with him because he simply expects more out of you than you can provide. That's when you notice Jesus. You just know that Jesus would be the perfect husband for you, and you begin to pine after him. There's only one problem. You're married, and there's no way you can ditch the law and get with Jesus. That would be adultery. What would be ideal is for your husband to die. Then you would be free to marry Jesus, and life would be a bed of roses. Yeah, I mean, we're laughing, but I'm telling you, this is the picture. This is the metaphor that Paul paints for us. Between here, your marriage to the law. You want the law to die so that you can be free to take another husband. But that's not what happens at all. God never does kill the law. Instead, he pulls a total 180. The law doesn't die, you die. Because you're dead, you are freed from the covenant of marriage, just as free as if your husband, the law, had been the one to die. Now you're free to marry Jesus, figuratively speaking, of course. And what's the purpose of that marriage? To bear fruit to God. Nothing has changed since God first told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, except now we're talking about spiritual offspring, not natural children. The church, who is the bride, is to become intimate with her groom Jesus in order to produce spiritual offspring that may be presented back to God the Father. And that spiritual offspring, that fruit, as I've already said 6 verses earlier in Romans 6:22, is holiness. The purpose of your life is to have spiritual intimacy with Jesus so you can bear the fruit of holiness to God. In Judges chapter 11, Jephthah's daughter is distraught because she is not going to be able to fulfill her purpose on the earth, which is to bear fruit. Her life is going to be cut short before she can fulfill her purpose of bearing fruit in the natural. Go to Romans 7, and we find that our purpose in life is to become intimate with Jesus so that he produces in us the fruit of the Spirit. That fruit of the Spirit goes by 9 different facet names in Galatians 22:23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But all of those 9 aspects, all of those 9 facets of the diamond that is the one singular fruit of the Spirit, that fruit of the Spirit is holiness. Romans 6:22. You have your fruit at the end of your life once you have yielded yourself to God for him to have his way in you. By the end of that life, you have produced the fruit of holiness. And Paul says at the beginning of chapter 7, let me illustrate. Imagine you're married. We produce the fruit of the Spirit by becoming intimate with God through Jesus Christ. We can't produce Spirit of our own selves. And too many Christians nowadays have the idea, and we harp on this over and over and over in our church. Too many Christians nowadays have the idea that I get saved and then I just wait to either die or get raptured and go to heaven. And if that were true, we'd just get sucked off the planet as soon as we get saved. No, getting saved is the starting point. Now we have the rest of our lives to offer ourselves to God for Him to develop in us the fruit of the Spirit. Would that we as the church be more like Jephthah's daughter in the natural? Would we be more like that in the spiritual? That we don't want to have anything happen to cut our lives short before we can give ourselves to God so that He can bear the fruit of the Spirit in us before our time is done. Be fruitful and multiply, the original commandment. Yes, in the natural, but more importantly, we see in Romans 7 that it is really a spiritual command. And we should be like Jephthah's daughter in that we don't want to end our lives before first bearing the fruit, and in this case, the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, personal practical application is bearing fruit. I just want to take just a minute to pray. Let's pray that the fruit of the Spirit is developed in our lives. Let's let it be known to God once more that we desire to bear more fruit. Let's take just a moment and talk to the Lord. Give ourselves back to Him. Let Him know that we want to be with Him and want Him to develop the fruit of the Spirit in us. okay. I think for most of us, I think the Lord knows that we want to be yielded to Him, that we are yielded to Him. I think this is nothing. It's nothing new, but it's always a good reminder to just consecrate ourselves again. He knows. He knows that you are yielded to Him and want to continue to be yielded to Him. But we need to continue to say so. Good. Celebration of knowledge. If you haven't already done so, you can get back in the game with the QR code there. And we'll do our 3 questions. And then we'll move on to a couple of votings on March Gladness. How did Abimelech die? A woman hit him on the head with a bronze idol. He was run through by his armor bearer. He died at the hands of Gaal in the battle of Shechem, or he accidentally ate a pineapple pizza. All right, survey says vast majority think he was run through by the armor bearer. That's quite a bit better than the preview question, and yes, that is the correct answer. He did get hit on the head by a woman, but it wasn't with a bronze idol, it was with a millstone, and it didn't kill him. It would have killed him, but the sword got to him first. True or false, Abimelech was the worst judge? Most people said false the first time. Answer is false. Not because he wasn't bad, but because he wasn't a judge at all. And third and final question tonight. Jephthah did all of the following except, which one did he not do? Defeat the Midianites at Gilead, make an unwise vow to the Lord, killed 42,000 Ephraimites, or recount accurate history to his royal opponent. I'll give another second. First time we had this question, a little more than half of you said recount accurate history. Now a little fewer than half of you say recount accurate history. All right, you guys, we talked about that he did recount accurate history. He did recount accurate history. The king of the Ammonites said to him, y'all did all this stuff. That's why we want our land back. And he said, no. And he went through line item. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. And I made the point that are you able to recount history to your accuser? Right? So, that he did. He also killed 42,000 Ephraimites. He also made an unwise vow to the Lord. What he did not do is defeat the Midianites at Gilead. He defeated the Ammonites. So the correct answer is A. He did not defeat the Midianites. He defeated the Ammonites. All right, next week, actually 2 weeks from tonight, next week we have Dr. Bilge. Dr. Bilge. A gentleman whom I have not met, but I'm sure he's fantastic. Okay, it's Dr. Gio and Dr. Angela know him from Turkey. Okay, so that's next week. So in 2 weeks, we'll do Judges 13 to 16. That's the story of. There's only one judge left, and that's right. That's Samson, and then we'll have March Gladness round 4, where we will send one of these stellar gentlemen to the Final Four. In a mere 2 weeks, we will have the Patriarch's representative in the Final Four decided. But tonight, we need to decide the Elite Eight. All right? It is Noah versus Joseph. Noah versus Joseph is our first vote of the evening, all right? So in your groups, please discuss the pros and cons. There won't be very many cons. At this point, we got 4 really great guys. But Noah versus Joseph, we're going to advance 1 to the Elite 8. Talk about them. Nope. Noah versus Joseph. Jacob lost last week. Jacob lost to Noah. Yeah. Joseph and Noah advanced last week. It's Joseph versus Noah. No. It's Noah. Jacob lost. It's definitely Noah versus Joseph. Okay? I haven't opened it yet. Okay. Noah versus Joseph. 8 seed Noah versus 4 seed Joseph. I have not turned on the voting yet. We're just discussing. All right, give me the top couple pros for Noah. The what? She restarted humanity. That was a big deal. Thank you, Lord. The what? Yeah, the only family that was faithful. Eight people. That's why he's the 8 seed. No, that's not why. Good. Anything against Joseph? Tacky clothing. If that's the best you got, that's a pretty good guy. All right. How about pros for Joseph? Sorry, what was it? Stayed true to God, went through a lot. Saved the known world. Okay. How about any cons against Noah? Got drunk. Is that it? And uncovered, right? Drunk and uncovered, whatever that thing was all about. All right, so. All right, voting is open. Please place your vote for Noah or Joseph. It is a hard one, yeah. I mean, when you get to this level, it should be hard. We got some good guys in the Bible. I did a little work this week on future March Gladnesses. Some cool stuff coming. All right, let's see. We've got 22 votes. That's probably good enough. Let's see. Are you ready? Oh, that's 22. If it's 11 to 11, I'm going to have to vote. Joseph, 13 to 9. Pretty close. Pretty close. I'm going to take note of this. Joseph, 13 to 9. All right, one more. Don't do anything. Okay, give me a chance to. Okay, there we go. So voting is turned off. Okay, so we're discussing. We still got that 15 seed in the race here, ladies and gentlemen, with two massive upsets in rounds 1 and round 2. Already knocked off Judah and was it Levi? Okay. Meanwhile, Abraham plugging along like he's supposed to. Discuss, please, the merits of these two characters, Enoch and Abraham. Go. All right. Give me pros for Enoch. He was a saint. Period. He didn't die. He was so close to God, the Lord took him. Okay? Cons against Abraham. Okay? I think we know who called once. Pros for Abraham. Pros for Abraham. Wait, what? Pros for Abraham. Father of faith. He's Abraham. The entire thing is based on him, all right? Any knocks on Enoch? No show. What do you mean by that? To what? What do you mean by that? He didn't show up to his funeral. Okay, all right. Weird. All right. Enoch and Abraham. Voting is now open. Vote. There's only one 15 seed that has ever advanced to the Elite Eight. That was St. Peter's in 2022. Can Enoch be the second? $19 people have voted. 20 people have voted. right. Well, if it stands at 21, then we will have a winner. Now there's 22. If it's to 11 to 11, I will break the tie. Abraham, 16 to 6, advances. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great-grandfather, great-grandson matchup for a trip to the Final Four. Abraham versus Joseph. 2 weeks from tonight, we will know who we have sent to the Final Four from the Patriarchs division. Hope you had a good time tonight. Be blessed this week. See you on Sunday.